This is my debut video on a wargaming project I've been starting in about a couple weeks ago. This particular one is on the halls of Montezuma. It's not exactly what I expected to be doing for my first video, partly because this is my second time that I've actually purchased this game. I purchased it probably a year or two ago, and it sat on my shelf, and I was doing some shelf cleaning and trying to purchase some other games, and this one seemed expendable because I'd read about how difficult it was to really get into it, and the rules were a mess, and even though I had a copy of the updated rule set, I just wasn't sure that it was going to be worth the time and effort. And then I sold it and had a chance, it popped up on somebody's feed on Facebook, and it was kind of a ridiculously cheap price for an unpunched copy, and I just decided to give it another go. So I bought that, and recently, like as I said before, 2 weeks ago, I started a little project and getting some more concentrated game playing in. And I have a list of a number of my games on my shelves, and decided I would just randomly pick one with a randomizer app I have. You can punch in any number from 1 to, I don't know, probably 1,000. So I did 1 to 60, and there's some subcategories too. And so I've just randomly been choosing some games, and it actually has given me more motivation to play. Because I get it off the shelf, review the rules if I have to, and just get it going, and it's actually been a lot of fun. And so this is probably my fourth one. When I pulled it off the shelf, I thought, okay, let's see what happens. And this is actually my third go at it, and I am in to, you can see over there, in turn, what is it, 5, beginning of turn 5, and by this third time through, I think I've got the hang of it, and it's actually been fun this third time through. And by fun meaning I'm kind of understanding the processes and the procedures and all the different options that you have in a game like this. And in fact, sometimes I think there are too many options, and it might be why some people have stayed away from it. But it really does give you a good sense of what was possible, some of the historical context of the Mexican-American War, of which there's probably not a lot of games out there simulating this. So I've actually gotten a couple of books. One I got online, one I am waiting for at the library, and it's pretty fascinating, actually. The first 2 attempts that I did were maybe the first one I probably got 1 turn in and realized I was doing some things wrong, and then the next one I got about 3, almost 4 turns in. I think I might have gotten to the 4th turn, and there were a few more things that I know I'd missed in the rules that played a fairly big part in the particular run through I had, and so it didn't seem to make sense to keep going. And so I think this third time through, I finally gotten a hang for some of the little details, and there are a lot of details in here. Especially concerning what your options are every time you have a pulse, and this is the normal kind of card-driven game where you have ops points and also events on each of the cards. I actually think the overall production value of the game is pretty high. It's typical GMT standard, but it's just there are so many things you need to consider as you're making a move, one of your moves in each turn, and it's very much driven on this political will track that the Mexican and American players have to kind of keep in mind as they're playing. Right now it is at 19, which is getting down there. I know in my first game, the second game, the Mexican player had been getting up to 31, 32, and kind of running rampant in South Texas with Santa Ana, but I was doing some things wrong with armies, and so that influenced my decision to scrap that game and be a little more fair. But I just want to do this initial post to kind of show you what the situation is, how the game looks when it's in progress. In this particular case, Santa Ana, it's kind of a trade-off. Santa Ana, you can see the baggage train up in South Texas is he's kind of manhandled the generals, specifically Taylor, Zachary Taylor, and there's issues in that area as far as keeping Santa Ana under control, and there's victory conditions for the American if they get Monterrey and Saltillo, along with Mexico and Veracruz. Over here, which they've already conquered, but they would have a tough time right now getting the other two sites up in the north, Mexico. Also Alta California, which they have a unit way up in the upper corner of the map, and so that's where it stands right now at the beginning of turn 5. The cards are actually quite interesting. The biggest thing you have to worry about is keeping your supply lines open, because those can be devastating. You can lose half of your steps, your unit steps in a particular army or force when they're out of supply. And these raid markers that happen sometimes during the game turn proper from cards, event cards, and also from the beginning, these action deck cards that happen 2 per person, per player, such as this one. And so placing those raid counters, they do count as a half political will point in your favor at the end of the turn, depending on who places them. But I think the real value is, as you can see up there in the north, that Kearney is cut off from supply. So he lost half of his units when the supply pulse happened. So that's the situation at the beginning of turn 5, and I think Scott did invade, and he's captured Mexico, but he's lost a number of steps, and actually been reinforced already too. So there's a lot of give and take and back and forth, depending on how the cards fall, depending on how you play your cards. But I'm actually excited about seeing this to the end, when there actually was not a lot of motivation to play this necessarily the first thing off my shelf, when I have a lot of other games that I'd definitely like to get to. But I'm glad I pulled this out and got through the new rule set a couple of times, and it's actually a lot of fun. And I have to agree with Gilbert on this one. I think this one is underrated. There were some posts on the Wargamers group on Facebook about this being an underrated game, and I didn't believe them when I first read it, but I think I agree with them now. But you do have to invest some time and effort into getting to the system, getting through the rules. The rules aren't put together in the greatest manner. I know if I honestly thought about it and was committed to it, I'd go through that rule set and redo the rules in a way that would, I think, stick with a person when they read it a little bit better, because there are a lot of cool options, but I think sometimes I have trouble going back and forth finding a specific rule and how it's connected to some of the other things that you're doing. So again, it's worth the effort, and I think I might post another short video of where this leads to, and you'll have to bear with me in the first time using, right now it's just using my iPhone 11 to take videos, and a stand that I'm not totally comfortable with yet. So hope you stick with it, and if you have this on your shelf, maybe think about if you've got the time to give it a chance, and we'll see where this leads. Have a good day.